Welcome back to One Piece Explained. We recently got more news regarding details about the first episode of Season 2, some information about returning characters for the season, all alongside a trailer showcasing the Straw Hat cast coming back to Cape Town for their first week of filming, which included a blink and you'll miss it detail about what we're getting this time around. On top of that, we may have another hint that we'll be getting more than just one season's worth of episodes for the Alabasta saga. A lot of really fun stuff to talk about, and I want to get right into it, but first, if you're new to the channel or just have been enjoying my videos in general, from my live action coverage to my weekly manga breakdowns, I'd really appreciate it if you left a like and subscribe to the channel so you can get more videos as soon as they come out, and it helps to support me in the process. That said, let's talk about this news. Now let's start off with the most recent bit of information, as the official accounts just shared with us the script for the first episode of the season, along with a ton of props. Episode 1 is titled The Beginning and the End, a reference of course to Loguetown, a play on the notions of a prologue and an epilogue. This should be pretty solid confirmation that we will indeed be covering Loguetown in this season, if that wasn't made clear by this point already. But that's not the only thing we can garner from this script. There are a lot of sleuths out there, including the good people over at the One Piece live action Discord, who have realized that you can faintly make out the text behind the cover page of the script. With some image manipulation, you can get a slightly better look at some of the text, though a lot of it is still obscured. However, one line that stands out fairly clearly is this one here that reads Vice Admiral Garp in all capitals, suggesting that this is either a line read or expositional reference to the character, meaning Vincent Reagan is likely reprising his role in this season as Garp as well. You can also make it out as a line read at the bottom right here. While many of us speculated on his return in this season, it's great to see some close to confirmation for it here. It's also very interesting that the episode seems to start off with his character, making me wonder if we'll actually get a flashback sequence to Roger's execution once more, as a parallel to how the series started with episode 1. However, there is also some text toward the bottom that looks to read Monkey D. Luffy, so perhaps this is even starting media res with Luffy at the execution platform already, and various Marines commenting on it. There's even a wilder bit of speculation here though, as there's some reason to believe this word may be Valley, and the word preceding it is short enough to perhaps be God. Without getting too much into spoilers, this is a fairly significant inclusion for those in the know. I doubt we'll be getting more than a name drop, if at all, just to further expand the world building and reference things that we learned about much more recently in the series, but it would be a very cool inclusion nonetheless. Now, why would God Valley and Monkey D. Luffy be mentioned in the same sentence? Who knows? The community could just be mistaken here, or this could even be some elaborate troll by the studio to mess with the super sleuths in the fandom. We'll just have to see. Now there's also the various props surrounding the script that give us more insight into what we'll be getting in this episode. Of course, you have Luffy's straw hat, but there's also a compass here that is slightly different from the one we saw with Nami in the previous season. This one much more closely resembles the compass that we saw with her in the source material during the Reverse Mountain arc, when we find out that we can no longer simply rely on it for navigating the Grand Line. To the left is what looks to be a pepper mill, which I suppose would represent Sanji in this season. I have to wonder if there's more to it here that I'm missing, and perhaps we'll get to see Sanji's cooking match in Loguetown from the anime. Above the script, you'll see a sword with a red sheath, and this is of course the Sandai Kitetsu, or Kitetsu III, the blade that Zoro receives in Loguetown. Much like in the source material, live-action Zoro is still down 2 swords after his duel with Mihawk, so I'm hoping we'll get his scene at the weapons shop adapted, and perhaps even see Ippo and Matsu. And perhaps my favorite inclusion in this picture is Usopp's goggles. I've actually talked at length about these in particular and how to better handle Usopp and Sanji's character arcs in a specific video before, so check that out if you're interested. Usopp acquires the goggles in Loguetown, and they end up being somewhat of a plot point throughout the saga, as Mr. 2 eventually takes them from him to better impersonate Usopp. Sanji of course engages him in combat and defeats him, taking the goggles back. So I'm happy to see them make their way into the live action. We were actually supposed to see how Usopp got the goggles in the first place in the manga, but the scene was left out due to page restrictions, so I can totally see the scene getting adapted into the live action. Moving on, there's a pretty interesting article going around from the independent Netflix news site, What's on Netflix. I've talked about them before on this channel, and they have a pretty decent track record for any sort of news and updates regarding Netflix series. They were the ones who reported on that initial batch of casting descriptions a few months ago, and more recently, they stated that we would get more news throughout the week after that initial reveal of the Brokeworks agents casting last week, and that turned out to be true as well. In this article, going through every show that has been renewed for new episodes, One Piece is of course included, but it doesn't simply just list Season 2 as what's in the works. Instead, it reads Season 2/new episodes. Not only that, they add that Netflix has not officially stated that this was Season 2, which raises some eyebrows. We've definitely had various people associated with the series, between those in front and behind the camera, refer to this as the second season, so I have to wonder what's going on here. All of this combined, though, does make me think we may be getting more than just 8 episodes of a season here. Several weeks ago, Rashad Mayweather, who played Patty in Season 1, misspoke and said they were filming Season 2 and Season 3 back to back, which he later went on to retract and explained that he was just speculating as well. Since then, I've wondered if there was some truth to his words, not in there being a third season, but there being additional content that was being shot after Season 2 wrapped. I've speculated on the channel before that we may be getting a split season of sorts, a release schedule that Netflix enjoys with their bigger titles such as Stranger Things or Cobra Kai, where episodes are released in batches over the course of months as opposed to all at once in a single day. Now, there are pros and cons to all sorts of streaming models, but this one may allow One Piece to cover more of the source material in a satisfactory way without being beholden to the 8-episode structure that really held it back in the first season. And in an effort to sort of bolster this idea, I should note that the only other series that was listed as having a Season 2/new episodes was The Sandman, an adaptation of Neil Gaiman's popular comic. This series was also relatively well received, and the renewal process for it was quite interesting, as Netflix had not officially mentioned a second season when talking about its continuation. Instead, it was reported that the approach they were taking with the series was more akin to how the source material was released, in volumes. This format should be familiar to any manga reader, as that's exactly how individual chapters of One Piece are organized as well after their initial release in Weekly Shonen Jump. This release model of several batches of episodes is quite conducive to how the story of One Piece is told, with any given saga being composed of individual arcs. Perhaps we see something where we get several episodes covering the start of their journey into the Grand Line from Loguetown to Little Garden, and then a batch of episodes covering Drum Island, with the climax of the saga being left for the group of episodes covering Alabasta. All of this is of course just me speculating on the bits of information that we have, but I am excited at this potential release model if it allows for the source material to be adapted in a more faithful, better paced manner. I'd love to know what you think about this idea in the comments. Would you just prefer all the episodes at once, or are you excited at the potential of having several batches of episodes throughout the year? What's on Netflix also reported a few returning characters for Season 2, including Jeff Ward's Buggy and Ilya Isorele's Alvida. Now, we had a strong suspicion these two would come back given the ending of Season 1 and their major roles in the Loguetown arc in the source material, but aside from that, I do wonder if they'll be given an additional role throughout the saga. As we saw in Season 1, Buggy had a lasting presence across 7 of the 8 episodes, and with his status as a fan-favorite character, I could definitely see them working his journey into the Grand Line as a secondary or tertiary plot throughout the series. In the source material, after the events of Loguetown, we actually don't see Buggy again until the Jaya arc, so there's plenty of wiggle room for them to play around with this character. Perhaps we could even see him visiting Crocus on his way into the Grand Line, or even get a brief encounter with Mr. 3. We'll just have to see. The other character that is being brought back is a bit more interesting, as Michael Dorman's Gold Roger is slated to reprise his role as well. Of course, since Gold Roger's dead in present day, this would likely suggest that we're getting a bunch more flashbacks, but to what? Well, since we are dealing with Loguetown, it would make some sense to see more of Roger's execution. The first season did a very good job at adapting the scene, even incorporating various perspectives and elements that we got later on, such as the inclusion of several characters from Chapter 0, as well as Smoker having witnessed it firsthand as a child. In fact, we could actually be getting that scene expounded upon in this season to include more of a young Smoker's reaction, as we did in the anime, whereas in the source material, this scene was merely just implied. There's more anime exclusive filler content that could be adapted as well, with the Gold Roger bar, where Roger was said to have frequented before going on his journey. In the present day, Smoker was its last regular customer. We could see this incorporated into the live action with perhaps Raoul, the barkeep, adapted as well. Whatever the scene may be, I also have some expectation that we will see Roger's chilling words from Chapter 100 become adapted at some point, if not as voiceover dialogue, then a proper scene unto itself. There are a few other interesting options to include that will contain some pretty big spoilers for the series beyond the scope of Alabasta, so if you'd like to remain unspoiled, I do recommend skipping ahead or clicking off the video, and if so, thank you so much for watching this far. Alright, as we know, in hindsight, there are several members of the Roger Pirates that we've already met in the story by this point, 2 of them being Buggy and Shanks. Similar to Buggy, Shanks does not appear in the story after the Loguetown arc until the Jaya arc, so perhaps there's some room to work him into Buggy's story in this season as well. though we could also stand to see a flashback involving the two as members of the Roger Pirates. This flashback was not explicitly covered in the first season when it originally took place in the source material, and perhaps we could stand to see the reveal of Roger being their captain in this season. Maybe even get a stand-in to play a younger Rayleigh. We'll have to see. Another option is to include a scene between Crocus and Roger. In the source material, it's not yet confirmed by this point that Crocus was the doctor of the Roger Pirates, but we do leave off on the suggestion at the end of the Reverse Mountain arc, with Crocus expressing some interest in the Straw Hat Pirates and name-dropping Roger himself. There's a lot of exciting possibilities at play here, with decades of hindsight to work into the adaptation, and I can't wait to see what they end up going with. Speaking of Crocus in the Reverse Mountain arc, we actually did get a better look at a certain ship in the background of the recent start of production teaser from Netflix. Several weeks ago, we got a pre-production photo of a ship being built that largely resembled the ship that belonged to the Rumbar Pirates. I covered this on the channel a few weeks ago and talked about how this may mean that we could actually be getting an extended flashback with them leaving Laboon to Crocus, and we may even get our first hint at Brooke in this season as well. For more on that, be sure to check out this video here. Now, in the start of production teaser, we get a better look at this very same ship and can really take a good look at all of its details and intricacies in its design. But not only that, we also get a slightly better look at the ship's figurehead with the ox skull. I'm super excited for what this may mean for the series and the possibility of seeing Brooke as well. Alright, that's about it for everything I wanted to cover in this video. Even with the initial batch of castings out of the way, we're still getting more and more bits of news each and every day. So if you want to stay on top of everything regarding Season 2, be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It helps to support me and grow the channel, but you also get these videos as soon as they come out. I'd love to know what you're most excited about from all of this news in the comments as well. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I hope to see you in the next one.